Hey guys, welcome back. How a bill becomes a law, day 2. Okay, just scrolling back here, people come up with an idea. Members of Congress, they sponsor a bill, introduce it. It's sent to a committee, referred to a committee by the Speaker or the Senate Majority Leader. Okay, the committee is going to have hearings. They'll do markup, both in subcommittee or in full committee. After markup, they will report the bill. Remember, the report is very important because this is what most members read to make their decision. If it moves on there, there's the report, and then we go to the floor. Okay, so now it's going to go on a schedule, either the House schedule or the calendar or the Senate. Okay, there's just some details in here. Okay. But then you get the debate. Okay, so basically, when we talk about the House of Representatives, okay, you have actually a House Rules Committee. Okay, and they're going to determine two things. Are they going to allow debate? How long will that debate last? So if you do debate for 30 minutes, or excuse me, for an hour, then each party gets 30 minutes to talk. So they can split that up in 5-minute segments or 2-minute segments to different members so that they can speak on the floor. The other factor is going to be, are they going to allow any changes or amendments to the bill? As it came out of committee, do you want the full membership to be able to make changes to it? So the House rules, they have open, closed, and modified here. And that deals with the amendments, whether they're going to allow any. That would be open, closed, no amendments, and then modified would be they'll allow some changes or amendments to the bill. Okay, but those are the two major factors: length of debate and number of amendments. Okay, so in the House they have strict rules, so that means the committee's work is not going to change much, and so the committee's work is very important. In the Senate, guys, the Senate there are no rules, okay? And so I'm going to put a link on today of Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, and you're going to get to see the scenario where a member of the Senate dies, okay? This is a fictional movie made in 1939. It's awesome. It's got Jimmy Stewart, one of the great American actors in American history, okay? And this is a famous film that is kind of a rite of passage for all government students in high school to watch this movie. So I hope you will watch it because I'm going to include a test question or two from the movie. So that's going to be an assignment. So anyhow, since there are no rules in the Senate, there's no length of debate, and there is no limit on the number of changes or amendments that you can make to a bill, which allows for the tactic called the filibuster in the Senate. Okay, can't do a filibuster in the House, okay, because they have strict rules. So if they want to create rules in the Senate, they do what's called a unanimous consent agreement. That means all 100 senators agree to place limit on debate. Say we'll debate it for 1 hour. All 100 agree. Guess what? You can't do a filibuster because debate can only be an hour. Or they can do a unanimous consent agreement to say there are no changes to this bill. It is as it is, and we're going to vote on it. Okay. Most of the time they do get unanimous consent agreement for things like debate. But if one of the parties doesn't really like the bill, okay, you could have a filibuster where it's just one person, or you could have a filibuster where it's two people. So I can talk for, an hour and a half and then yield to my friend that is going to talk for an hour and a half. I can take a break, go get something to eat, use the bathroom, come back. He yields back to me, and we can go back and forth all day into the night, into the next day, into the next week, and so forth. And that really prevents the voting on a bill. It's a delaying tactic. Now, right now, there's 53 Republicans and 47 Democrats. So if the Democrats say we're going to filibuster, all 47 of them, the Republicans won't even bring it up for a vote because they know they can't stop a filibuster, okay? There is something called a cloture, okay? A cloture ends a filibuster. And with a cloture, let me just show you some of this stuff here. I got in my other notes. I got to go quite a ways for this. But the movie doesn't show this, but you can stop a filibuster with 60 votes. Okay, get down here. Okay, so without unanimous consent, filibusters are possible. Okay, but it takes 60 votes to stop a filibuster. Okay, and I'm going to attach also a video on how Obamacare became law. I did it the other night for my other class. And this is pretty interesting how the system works, and will kind of reinforce your learning as far as you know, what a filibuster means and so forth. Okay. All right. Voting. Okay. So let's say you know, it's brought to the floor. They do their debate. Once the debate is ended, any amendments are added to the bill. They have been approved. The full membership will vote. Riders can be attached, amendments that have nothing to do with the bill. Now, that certainly happens more in the Senate than the House. Okay, this is where we see pork barrel spending, wasteful spending on things you like. Why are we spending money on, you know, $150,000 to study the mating habits of the Japanese quail? What does that have to do with anything? Okay. That kind of stuff makes its way into bills, okay? The vote may be a voice vote, roll call vote, where they actually have to stand and vote. And, you know, their name will be called and they'll say yay or nay, okay? But most of the time, guys, they have these little buttons at their desk where they press yay or nay, okay? You have to be present to vote. You cannot vote from home. You cannot vote you know, in a teleconference or anything like that. You have to be on the floor to vote, okay? Now, if it passes, say the House, because most bills start in the House, it'll go to the other chamber, to the Senate, okay, and repeat the steps. It'll be referred to a committee. They'll have hearings, markup, and because the rules are so loose in the Senate, you're going to wind up with two different versions of the same bill over the same subject, okay? And so that's where the conference committee comes in that I talked about earlier, where you take members of the House and the Senate, usually from the committees where those bills originated in both houses. They come together and meet in the conference committee. Okay? And you'll see that in the video I do on Obamacare. Okay? So they try and work out the differences between the two versions. If they cannot agree, the bill dies. However, once a bill reaches conference committee, it has a lot of support in both houses. So generally, if it makes it this far, it's going to pass, okay? If a committee does not agree on a compromise, they can, or if they do agree on a compromise, they prepare a report detailing the changes that have been proposed. Both the House and Senate must approve the report of the conference committee, and the bill is sent back for further work or to be voted on. So now you have version 3 of the bill. So you have the House version, Senate version. They come together. They work out some compromise. You have version 3. That's got to go back to the House and the Senate to be voted on again. The exact same bill has to pass both houses before you send it to the president. Okay? And that's where we get to the next step. So the president actually has 4 different options. Okay? The first 2 are simple, right? He can sign it, it becomes a law. He can veto it, okay? Or he can take no action, let the bill sit on his desk. And there's going to be 2 options here. If the bill's sitting on his desk for 10 days, at the end of those 10 days, if Congress is in session, they're working like we're in school, we're in session, the bill automatically becomes law. Now, we just came up with a term with this way back in 1998. I had a student in my regular government class that there's no name for this, like gerrymandering or filibuster, or, you know, these political terms. So we came up with ghostwriter because it becomes law, but it's kind of like a ghost is signing it, not the president. The other one is a pocket veto. So at the end of those 10 days, it's sitting on the president's desk. If Congress is out of session, they're not working, then it's called a pocket veto. Now, those 2 options are rarely used, okay? Pocket veto could be used, you know, where the president just, you know, he doesn't have the, you know, cojones, if you will, guts, to veto it. So he does a pocket veto. With the ghostwriter, you might see a situation where Congress overwhelmingly passes this bill. The president doesn't like it, but he knows it's the will of the country, so he allows it to become law without putting his name on it. Okay? Now, if the president does veto, we go to this next step, okay, and the Congress can override the veto with 2/3 in both houses, okay? This rarely happens, okay, but I'll tell you one place where it did happen. George Bush, in 8 years, vetoed 2 bills. One of those was government's funding of embryonic stem cell research, okay? W. Bush was a solid Christian conservative and didn't believe in abortion, and he said, I'm not going to help fund this industry, but Congress actually overrode that with 2/3 majority in both houses, okay? So if they think the president's going to veto something, they're going to try and negotiate a compromise with the president before they actually pass it, if that makes sense. They got to communicate with each other, okay? And that, ladies and gentlemen, is how a bill becomes a law. Okay, you can watch the little cartoon. I can do a link to that. But I'm also going to do a link today to how Obamacare became law. And it's pretty good. It's about 9 minutes long. So you're looking at about 20 minutes today. That's it. Get outside. Enjoy the weather. It's beautiful. The weather's going to turn for the worse tomorrow. So get out there. Lily and I got a lot of good gardening in yesterday. Got our tomatoes planted, some herbs, and got our strawberries looking good. So you guys have a great day, and I'll be back in touch tomorrow. Happy Holy Week. Peace. Take care.